Whiskers, the Time-Traveling Cat, written by Arnell Johnson, narrated by Daniel Sean Smith. Once upon a time, in a cozy little town, there lived a clever, fluffy cat named Whiskers. Whiskers had a shiny collar with a tiny, mysterious clock attached. The other animals in the neighborhood often wondered about the clock, but Whiskers kept it a secret. Little did they know, it was a magical time-traveling device. In the quiet town of Willowbrook, nestled between rolling green hills and whispering forests, lived a cat like no other. His name was Whiskers, a fluffy, mischievous feline with eyes that gleamed like polished amber. Unlike the other neighborhood cats, who spent their days chasing butterflies and napping in the sun, Whiskers carried a secret, a tiny, mysterious clock dangling from his collar. No one knew where the clock had come from. It wasn't there when Whiskers was a kitten, and no one in Willowbrook had ever seen anything like it before. The delicate golden timepiece ticked softly, its hands moving in a rhythm only Whiskers seemed to understand. The glass face shimmered in the sunlight, reflecting colors that didn't belong to the ordinary world. Sometimes a flicker of silver, like moonlight on water. Other times, a glow of deep violet-like twilight just before nightfall. The other animals often whispered about it. The glass face shimmered in the sunlight, reflecting colors that didn't belong to the ordinary world. Sometimes a flicker of silver-like moonlight on water. Other times, a glow of deep violet-like twilight just before nightfall.
Why does Whiskers have a clock? Cats don't need to tell time.
The squirrels would chatter as they scampered along the oak branches, tails twitching with curiosity. The old barn owl, Professor Hoot, would sometimes stare at the clock through his round spectacles, murmuring,
"There's something magical about that trinket. Something ancient."
He had seen many things in his long life, but never a cat with a timepiece that seemed to hum with an energy of its own. Even the town's dogs, normally uninterested in the affairs of cats, found themselves curious, yet cautious. Bruno, the burly sheepdog, once tried to sniff the clock, but the moment his wet nose got too close, a tiny spark of blue light zapped him on the tip. With a startled yelp, he stumbled backward, shaking his head.
"That thing ain't normal,"
he grumbled.
"Not normal at all."
But no matter how many questions were asked, Whiskers never revealed the truth, because the truth was too extraordinary to share. That tiny clock was far more than a decoration. It was a portal through time. Late at night, when the town was fast asleep, and only the crickets and fireflies remained awake, Whiskers would sit beneath the old willow tree in the center of town. The clock would glow, the soft hum turning into a whispering melody, as if the universe itself was calling his name. And with a single tap of his paw, the world around him would twist and shimmer, dissolving into a cascade of golden sparks. In an instant, Whiskers would be gone, vanished into the fabric of time itself, off to another era, another adventure, another mystery waiting to unfold. And just as suddenly as he left, he would return before dawn, curling up in his favorite spot on the bakery's warm windowsill, as if nothing had ever happened. The town of Willowbrook would wake to another ordinary day, never knowing that while they slept, their mischievous feline traveler had been roaming through time, leaping between centuries like a shadow in the wind. Where had he gone? What had he seen? Only Whiskers knew, and he wasn't telling, not yet. One sunny afternoon, while lounging in the garden, Whiskers noticed the clock glowing brightly. Curious, he tapped it with his paw. In a flash of sparkles, he was whisked away to a bustling medieval village filled with knights, princesses, and of course, lots of mice. As Whiskers lounged lazily in the garden, his tiny clock began to glow. A soft humming sound filled the air, gentle at first, then growing louder, like a song only he could hear. The golden hands of the clock spun backward at an impossible speed, flickering between past and present. Whiskers' ears perked up. He had traveled through time before, but the clock had never called to him quite like this. With a flick of his fluffy tail, he stretched out a paw and gave the clock a playful tap. Whoosh! A powerful gust of wind swirled around him, shimmering gold and silver. The garden vanished in a flurry of sparkles, and before Whiskers could even blink, he landed, thump, on a dusty cobblestone street. He shook his head, his amber eyes adjusting to the new world around him. Towering stone castles loomed in the distance, their banners fluttering proudly in the breeze. The scent of fresh baked bread, roasting meats, and spiced cider filled the air, mixing with the sounds of merchants calling out their wares. Horses clattered by, knights in flaming armor patrolled the streets, and children ran through the town square, laughing as they played. But what truly caught Whiskers' attention were the knights in shining armor preparing for a grand tournament. Excitedly, Whiskers explored the village. He met Sir Purr-fect, a brave knight who was preparing for a great tournament.
I need a trusty companion to help me practice,
Sir Purr-fect said. Whiskers, thrilled by the adventure, eagerly agreed.
You there, fluffy traveler. Are you seeking adventure?
Whiskers turned to see a valiant knight in silver armor, standing tall with a mighty sword at his side. His helmet had cat-like ears, and his cape bore the emblem of a roaring lion. He was unlike any knight Whiskers had ever seen.
I am Sir Purr-fect, bravest knight in the kingdom,
the knight declared.
I am training for the royal tournament, but alas, I lack a proper companion to sharpen my skills.
Whiskers twitched his whiskers. A tournament? Training with a knight? This sounded far more interesting than napping in the sun. With a determined meow, he leaped onto Sir Purr-fect's shoulder, balancing effortlessly on the polished silver armor. Excellent! Sir Purr-fect exclaimed. Then let us begin. Together, they trained hard, but Whiskers noticed that Sir Purr-fect had trouble believing in himself. You can do it! Just believe in your strength! Whiskers encouraged. With renewed confidence, Sir Purr-fect became the star of the tournament, winning the hearts of all. Training for battle. For 3 days and 3 nights, Whiskers trained alongside his new knightly companion. He dodged flying wooden swords, leaped gracefully over hay bales, and perfected the art of distraction. His favorite trick was darting between an opponent's legs at just the right moment, sending them toppling over in surprise. Sir Purr-fect was quick and strong, but as the tournament drew closer, doubt began to creep into his voice.
What if I'm not strong enough?
He sighed one evening, resting beneath a grand oak tree.
What if I fail?
Whiskers, stretched out beside him, gave a reassuring purr. He gently nudged the knight's gauntlet with his paw. You can do it. Whiskers meowed softly. Just believe in yourself. Sir Purr-fect let out a deep breath and nodded.
You're right, my brave little friend. We will fight with courage.
The Royal Tournament. The day of the tournament arrived with grand fanfare. Trumpets blared, banners fluttered, and villagers from far and wide gathered to watch the battles unfold. The king and queen sat high on their thrones, watching from their royal balcony. Sir Purr-fect stepped into the grand arena, standing tall, his sword gleaming in the sunlight. Whiskers perched proudly on his shoulder, his tail flicking with anticipation. The battle began. Opponent after opponent challenged Sir Purr-fect, but he fought with skill and unwavering determination. He parried, dodged, and struck with precision, each move honed by the training he had done with Whiskers. Then came the final challenger, the Black Knight, the undefeated warrior of the realm. Clad in dark, ominous armor, he loomed over the field like a shadow from a forgotten tale. The crowd gasped as he stepped forward, his deep voice echoing through the arena.
I will crush you, Sir Purr-fect.
The Black Knight sneered.
You do not stand a chance.
Sir Purr-fect gripped his sword, but Whiskers could sense his hesitation. With a swift flick of his paw, Whiskers playfully batted the knight's helmet, reminding him of their training. Believe in yourself, Whiskers meowed softly. The words sparked something inside Sir Purr-fect. With newfound confidence, he charged forward, meeting the Black Knight's blows with fearless precision. The battle raged, swords clashing, dust rising. But in the end, with one final swift strike, Sir Purr-fect disarmed his opponent. The Black Knight's sword clattered to the ground, and the arena erupted in cheers. A hero's reward. The king himself rose from his throne, clapping his hands.
A most valiant fight. Sir Purr-fect, you have proven yourself the finest knight in the land.
The king then turned his gaze to Whiskers, his eyes twinkling with amusement.
And to this small but mighty warrior, who fought with courage and cleverness, I bestow a token of honor.
The king's steward stepped forward and presented Whiskers with a tiny golden medallion, engraved with a lion's crest. Whiskers purred as it was fastened onto his collar, the metal gleaming beside his time-traveling clock. Sir Purr-fect beamed.
We did it, my friend! We are champions!
As the kingdom celebrated their victory, Whiskers sat beside his knightly companion, watching the fireworks light up the medieval sky. He felt proud. He had come to this time as a traveler, but he was leaving as a hero. But just as Whiskers basked in the glory of victory, his clock began to glow once more. The golden hand spun rapidly, the familiar hum filling the air. Whiskers knew what was coming. With one last flick of his tail, he tapped the clock. Whoosh! And just like that, he vanished in a swirl of golden light, off to his next great adventure. Where would time take him next? Only Whiskers knew. After the tournament, Whiskers tapped his clock again, and in a sparkle, he was off to ancient Egypt. There, he met a little kitten named Nefertiti, who was afraid of the dark.
The shadows are scary,
she exclaimed, trembling. Whiskers thought for a moment and said, "Why don't we make the shadows our friends?" The Egyptian mystery, the secret of the shadows. Whoosh! A gust of warm wind carried Whiskers through time, and in the blink of an eye, he landed with a soft thud on golden sand. As he shook off the dust, the intense Egyptian sun blazed above him, casting long shadows across the ancient land. The air was thick with the scent of exotic spices, baked bread, and incense from nearby temples. Towering pyramids stood in the distance, their smooth limestone sides gleaming in the sunlight. The Great Nile River snaked through the land like a ribbon of liquid gold, and palm trees swayed gently along its banks. Whiskers had never seen a place like this before. It was mesmerizing. But before he could admire the sights for too long, the bustling sounds of a lively marketplace filled his ears. Merchants called out their wares. Finest silk, sweetest dates, spices from distant lands. Camels groaned as they carried loads of goods, and people dressed in flowing linen robes hurried about their day. Whiskers padded through the crowd, weaving between sandaled feet and the hooves of donkeys pulling carts. As he neared a grand temple, decorated with tall columns and hieroglyphs depicting gods and pharaohs, he noticed something unusual. A small kitten, barely older than a baby, trembling in the shade of the temple steps. A kitten in fear. Whiskers tilted his head and stepped closer. The kitten's fur was the color of sun-kissed sand, and her eyes were large and filled with fear. "What's wrong?" Whiskers asked gently. The kitten glanced up at him, her little paws trembling.
The shadows, they move at night.
She whispered, her voice barely audible.
They stretch and dance along the walls. They watch me.
Whiskers blinked. "Shadows can't hurt you," he said, flicking his tail. "They're just shapes." But the kitten shook her head.
They grow bigger and bigger. They creep into my room. They whisper.
She shivered.
I hide under my blanket, but they never go away.
Whiskers' ears twitched thoughtfully. He had traveled through time, faced knights in tournaments, and met strange creatures from the future. But he had never met a kitten so frightened of something as simple as shadows. Then an idea struck him. "Why don't we make the shadows our friends?" he said with a playful twinkle in his eyes. The kitten looked at him, confused.
Make friends with them? How?
"Follow me." Together, they created shadow puppets on the wall, turning fear into laughter. Nefertiti learned that shadows were just shapes, and that there was nothing to fear. She thanked Whiskers with a shiny golden collar, which he wore proudly. The magic of shadow. That night, when the moon cast its silver glow over the pyramids, Whiskers led the kitten to a smooth temple wall, where the shadows stretched long and eerie. The kitten shrank back at first, but Whiskers sat confidently before the wall and raised his paw. A giant shadow stretched beside him, towering and bold. Then, with a flick of his tail, he moved his paws in the air, creating the shape of a camel. The kitten gasped. Whiskers swayed his paws again. The camel became a lion. Then a soaring falcon, its wings flapping against the temple wall. The kitten hesitated, then slowly raised her tiny paws, mimicking Whiskers' movements. Her shadow danced alongside his, first as a kitten, then as a jackal, then as a mighty sphinx. She giggled, the sound like a soft chime in the night.
It's not scary at all.
She meowed, her fear melting away. They played for hours, creating shapes of pharaohs, gods, and mythical creatures, their laughter echoing through the temple courtyard. The once frightening shadows had become something fun, something they could control. From the temple balcony above, a figure watched them. A royal gift. As the first light of dawn painted the horizon with hues of pink and gold, a voice called down to them. You have turned fear into courage. Whiskers and the kitten turned to see a young girl dressed in fine linen and gold jewelry, her braided hair adorned with jewels. She had wise, kind eyes, and her presence commanded respect. She was the pharaoh's daughter. She descended the temple steps gracefully, looking at Whiskers with curiosity. You are not from here, are you? Whiskers gave an innocent meow, his tail curling around his paws. The pharaoh's daughter smiled. You have a gift, she said. A gift of teaching, of courage. She reached into a small pouch tied around her waist and pulled out a golden collar, engraved with ancient symbols of protection and strength. She knelt and fastened it around Whiskers' neck.
Wear this as a symbol of bravery, for you have helped a young heart find her strength.
The kitten nuzzled Whiskers.
Thank you.
She purred.
I'll never be afraid of shadows again.
Whiskers purred in return, feeling a deep warmth in his heart. But before he could admire his new shiny golden collar, his clock began to hum once more. The pharaoh's daughter's eyes flickered to the glowing clock.
Ah,
she whispered, almost as if she understood.
Your journey is not over, time traveler.
Whiskers barely had a moment to react before, whoosh! A swirl of golden light surrounded him once more, lifting him off the sands of ancient Egypt, pulling him into the endless river of time. Where would he land next? Only time would tell. With another tap of the clock, Whiskers found himself in a futuristic city filled with flying cars and robot friends. There, he encountered a robot named Gizmo who felt lonely. I want to play, but everyone is too busy. Gizmo sighed. Whiskers had an idea. Let's throw a big party. Everyone will come if there's fun. The future of flying cars, a celebration of joy. Zoom! With a dazzling flash of blue light, Whiskers felt himself being propelled through time once again. The rush of wind tickled his whiskers, and the sensation of weightlessness made his paws tingle. In an instant, he landed gracefully on a smooth, metallic rooftop. Whiskers blinked in astonishment. He was no longer in a place of castles or ancient temples. Instead, towering skyscrapers stretched into the clouds, their sleek surfaces gleaming under the glow of neon billboards. High above him, flying cars whooshed by, their engines humming softly as they zipped through the sky like mechanical birds. The roads weren't on the ground at all. They were floating highways, held in place by glowing energy grids. Down below, Whiskers could see a city unlike any he had ever known. It pulsed with light and life. Robots with smooth silver bodies moved alongside animals of all kinds. A lion in a robotic suit walked side by side with a mechanical bird, while a fox wearing cybernetic goggles examined a holographic map. Floating billboards displayed ads for gravity-free shoes, self-cleaning fish bowls, and a vacation trip to Mars. Whiskers' amber eyes widened.
This place is amazing,
he meowed, his tail flicking excitedly. As he leapt down onto a glowing sidewalk, his paws made no sound. The material was soft, yet firm, as if designed for ultimate comfort. Everything in this futuristic city seemed efficient, sleek, and perfectly organized. But something felt off. The air, though full of movement, was missing something. There were no children laughing, no music playing, no sense of joy, just the constant hum of technology and the sound of machines working tirelessly. That's when he noticed a small, round robot sitting alone on a low platform. A robot's lonely heart. The little robot's glowing blue eyes flickered dimly, and its arms hung at its sides, as if it had lost all energy. Whiskers padded up to the little machine and tilted his head. "What's wrong?" he asked. The robot sighed, a soft mechanical whir that sounded almost sad. "No one has time for fun," the little robot murmured. "Everyone is too busy working. I want to play, but there's no one to play with." Whiskers twitched his whiskers thoughtfully. A city this big, this advanced, and no time for fun? That simply wouldn't do.
Then let's throw a party!
Whiskers declared with a confident flick of his tail. The robot, whose name was Gizmo, blinked in surprise.
A party? But no one here goes to parties. They only focus on work.
Whiskers grinned.
Then we'll remind them why having fun is important.
The ultimate future party. Without wasting another second, Whiskers and Gizmo got to work. They hacked into the city's holographic billboards, replacing advertisements with bright, colorful invitations to the greatest party in the future. They commandeered a floating drone and sent out confetti messages that rained down from the sky, each one unfolding into a tiny holographic cat face that winked and purred. Gizmo programmed a giant floating dance floor, complete with a gravity-free zone, where anyone who stepped inside could leap and twirl effortlessly. Whiskers, in charge of food, set up a floating snack table that dispensed delicious fish-shaped treats, hovering cupcakes, and cotton candy clouds that could change flavors with a tap of a paw. For entertainment, they arranged holographic games, laser light shows, and even a floating racetrack for high-speed robot races. They planned a magnificent party with games, music, and delicious treats. Soon, all the busy animals and robots joined in, and Gizmo's laughter filled the air. Whiskers realized that sometimes all it takes to make friends is a little creativity and kindness. A city transformed. At first, no one showed up. The workers of the city were too caught up in their daily routines, their eyes fixed on their tasks. But then, a young fox, curious about the glowing lights, cautiously approached. Then, a raccoon wearing cybernetic gloves stepped onto the dance floor and let out a delighted yelp as they floated weightlessly into the air. Soon, one by one, more animals and robots began arriving, their expressions of surprise quickly turning into wide grins. The once quiet city transformed into a place of laughter, movement. The lions danced, the owls soared in the gravity-free zone, and even the most serious-looking robot executives found themselves tapping their metallic feet to the beat of the music. Whiskers, watching from the top of a neon-lit sign, purred in satisfaction. The city wasn't just a place of work anymore. It was a place of joy. As the party roared on, Gizmo's blue eyes sparkled brighter than ever before.
Thank you, Whiskers,
Gizmo said.
I never thought a party could bring everyone together like this. You taught me that sometimes all it takes to change a world is a little joy.
Whiskers flicked his ears, pleased with his work. Fun was just as important as responsibility. Sometimes people just needed to be reminded. Just as he reached for a floating fish-shaped treat, his clock began to glow once more. A familiar hum filled the air. After countless adventures, Whiskers decided it was time to return home. As he tapped his clock one last time, he reflected on everything he had learned, believing in oneself, overcoming fears, and the importance of friendship. Gizmo's eyes flickered to the clock, sensing something special about it.
Are you a traveler?
Whiskers only gave a knowing purr before tapping the clock. Whoosh! The neon lights, flying cars, and futuristic skyline blurred into a swirl of golden energy. In the blink of an eye, Whiskers was gone, off to another time, another adventure. Where would he land next? Only time would tell. Back in his cozy town, Whiskers knew he would always cherish these lessons. He shared his stories with his animal friends, inspiring them to be brave and adventurous too. From that day on, Whiskers the time-traveling cat was not just a traveler of time, but also a teacher of valuable lessons. A hero returns home. The legend of Whiskers lives on. Whoosh! A final swirl of golden light shimmered around Whiskers, and in an instant, the futuristic city, the neon lights, and the sound of joyful laughter faded away. The hum of his magical clock softened, and suddenly, flop! Whiskers landed softly on the familiar green grass of his cozy little garden in Willowbrook. The gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh earth and blooming flowers, and the distant chirping of crickets filled the evening air. The quiet town was just as he had left it, peaceful, warm, and unchanged. He stretched luxuriously, arching his back, feeling the warmth of home seep back into his fur. Then his amber eyes flickered down at his treasures. Draped around his neck was the golden medallion from Sir Persalot, a token of bravery and friendship from the medieval tournament. His fur still gleamed with the royal collar gifted to him by the pharaoh's daughter, a symbol of wisdom and courage from his time in ancient Egypt. And though he carried no physical trinket from the future, he knew that somewhere in the heart of that neon-lit city, robots and animals were still dancing, laughing, and celebrating the joy he had helped bring back to them. Whiskers' whiskers twitched with satisfaction. He had traveled across centuries, met kings, knights, and futuristic beings. He had faced fears, helped others find their strength, and proved that kindness, courage, and a sense of adventure could change the world, no matter what time you were in. The return to Willowbrook. As he padded back toward town, the familiar sights and sounds of home wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. The towering willow tree in the center of town swayed gently in the wind, just as it always had. The squirrels chattered from their branches, still whispering about Whiskers' mysterious clock. The old barn owl, Professor Hoot, was perched on his favorite rooftop, watching with keen eyes. As Whiskers strolled by, the wise old owl gave him a knowing nod.
Back from another one of your little trips,
Professor Hoot hooted.
I have a feeling you have quite the story to tell.
Whiskers' whiskers twitched with satisfaction. He had traveled across centuries, met kings, knights, and futuristic beings. He had faced fears, helped others find their strength, and proved that kindness, courage, and sense of adventure could change the world, no matter what time you were in. Whiskers just purred, flicking his tail mischievously. He passed by the town's bakery, where the warm scent of freshly baked bread drifted through the air. The baker's dog, Bruno, sniffed the wind and barked in surprise.
Where have you been this time?
Bruno huffed, eyeing the gleaming medallion around Whiskers' neck. Whiskers simply stretched, gave a lazy yawn, and continued padding toward his favorite sunlit spot by the window. Some secrets, after all, were best left untold. And so, tucked in his warm bed each night, Whiskers dreamed of new adventures, knowing that with a little courage and a lot of heart, anything was possible. The return to Willowbrook. That night, as the moon bathed Willowbrook in silver light, Whiskers curled up in his soft, cozy bed, his tail tucked neatly around him. The world outside was still peaceful, unaware of the great adventures their feline traveler had just returned from. But Whiskers knew, and as he closed his eyes, he dreamed, not of chasing mice or napping in the sun, but of new places waiting to be explored, of ancient lands yet to be visited, of futures yet to be shaped. Because deep down, he knew the truth. Time was never still, And with just a flick of his paw and a tap of his magical clock, he could set off on another grand adventure. Because the world and time itself was always waiting for him. The end. Or perhaps just the beginning.